We're gonna have to wait a little bit longer for Forspoken. Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is pretty jam-packed, but there's more content already on the way. Plus, I've got reviews of Pixar's Turning Red and Square Enix's Triangle Strategy for Nintendo Switch. All that and the latest and everything cool today in the Rundown. Hey, welcome to the Rundown, everybody. My name is Victor Lucas, and I'm so happy to see you all here in the Electric Playground. We've got a great show for you today, and it is dedicated to Jeeves S., who had this to say. They started, on our last rundown, they started converting some PlayStation Now subscriptions over to PS Plus. Sony is definitely in the process of phasing out PS Now in anticipation of Spartacus. If I were Sony, I would keep the PS Plus moniker, but add Platinum, Gold, Silver, etc. to their respective tier. It's easy to understand, and it references their trophy system. Man, I think that that is an absolutely brilliant idea, Jeeves S. Thank you for that great comment. It is, you know, a little bit of cause for concern about how Sony is going to offer up whatever their Game Pass competitor is going to be, but hopefully it comes together well, and hopefully it is as much of a no-brainer as Game Pass is, and also the Nintendo Switch Online subscription is becoming as well, especially when you add in the Mario Kart stuff and, you know, the extra games that Nintendo is starting to put onto all of their classic consoles. We do want Game Boy on Nintendo Switch Online, though, don't we? All right, you guys, it's not all great news in the video game space right now. As we know, there's a delay on a title that we've been looking forward to for a while. Square Enix revealed today that Forspoken, a new action role-playing game that's being brought out for the PlayStation 5, has been demoed in a couple of different ways. It has been delayed. The developers have felt like they wanted a little bit more time, so they actually tweeted out today, and they said, "We have made the decision to move the release date of Forspoken to October 11th, 2022. Our vision for this exciting new IP is to deliver a game that, and a game world and a hero that gamers across the globe will want to experience for years to come, so getting it right is extremely important to us. To that end, during the next few months, we will focus all of our efforts on polishing the game and can't wait for you to experience Frey's journey this fall. Thank you for your understanding and continued support. We look forward to sharing more about Forspoken with you soon." Now, I've been looking forward to this game. I love when studios, you know, as big as Capcom and Square Enix and Ubisoft, I like when these studios are investing in some brand new IP, and that's exactly what Forspoken is. Forspoken also has some pretty incredible talent behind the scenes. Amy Hennig has contributed to this game. Gary Whitta has contributed to this game. I believe Evan Narcisse has as well. So it should be a pretty robust action role-playing experience that really takes advantage of current-gen technology and shows off, you know, some beautiful visuals and some pretty interesting DualSense compatibility and some cool magic effects and some open, vast worlds like an open, vast world to explore and cool enemies to combat. It looks good to me. You know, it certainly has more to show us to convince us thoroughly that this is one of the most exciting titles of 2022. But I really do hope that it's good, and you know, people definitely point out, as Darth Taz is right now in the chat, that ever since Cyberpunk came out and wasn't quite ready, it's really sort of brought a lot of attention to developers to you know, get their cards all in a row, you know, get their ducks all in a row, and get these titles out there so that they run as fluidly as we all want them to. You know, you don't want to have a Cyberpunk situation where you release something that just feels a little bit squandered and like a little bit of a letdown for folks. So I think this is a good move, and you know, I often say that you know, just make it great and we'll wait. You know, like that is a credo that I think every gamer out there, a huge chunk of us already feel that way, but I think more and more lessons like Cyberpunk keep happening, and it's totally fine. You know, I wish people would have that same kind of patience with the co-op campaign in Halo Infinite. I know that, you know, there's a lot of frustration that all of these things aren't lining up and that team isn't delivering all of the content that they could in as timely a manner to Halo Infinite. But Halo Infinite launched with a lot of goodies, you know. It was a great experience right out of the gate. And honestly, the co-op campaign is taking time for 343 to get it right. That's fine. Just make it great. We'll wait, you know. That's the way I feel. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Are you bummed out about Forspoken, though? Or were you looking forward to playing it this spring? Or are you cool with the developers and Square Enix taking the time to get this right? Let me know in the comments below. And let's move over to Pixar's latest release. It's called Turning Red. I've had a chance to see it. I've got your review right now. I've actually been able to see Turning Red a couple of times already. I wanted to, you know, kind of explore some of the themes and some of the emotions that the movie brought out in me. I'm a huge fan of Pixar. I'm also an enormous fan of the craftsmanship that went into this to kind of steer this title to be a Canadian adventure. You know, I think that is such a fantastic idea. Domhney Chi is the director on this movie, and she previously did Bao with Pixar. She's been there for about 10 years, but she's a Chinese-Canadian artist that has been working in this field for a very long time and wanted to craft something deeply personal with Turning Red. So we've heard about this movie for a while. It's been in production for a long time, as all the Pixar movies are, and it's incredibly exciting that Mei Mei, our main character, is a Toronto citizen. She rides the cable cars in Toronto, and she's got a bunch of buds that are all big fans of this boy band, Four Town, that's coming to Toronto, and they are just over the moon excited to finally see these performers live. This is a character, Mei Mei is a character, along with her friends, that is growing up and going through changes, and so this movie is really an allegory for a kid becoming a teenager and adolescence coming, and Turning Red can mean a bunch of different things. I think there's some subtlety in the titling there, but we see this character has this ability to become this giant red panda, and she doesn't quite know why this is happening to her, and in the course of the movie she has a massive freak out, and she's trying to figure out how is she going to contend with this, and how is she going to be able to go through life as a normal kid going to school when she has this you know, this thing inside of her that's erupting to get out and become this giant monster that is going to freak out everybody. Her parents try to give her a helping hand with all of this stuff, and of course the movie dives deeper into exactly what's happening here. And I thought there was some really clever elements to kind of tie this to what a normal teenager would go through, and how out of place a lot of us feel as we're transitioning towards adulthood. And so this is a movie with some pretty interesting complexities and some, you know, emotional resonance, as all Pixar movies have. And I thought that the movie was really well made. It's beautiful. It certainly has, you know, this eclectic, over-the-top animation style. I do have to say, though, that it didn't hit me with the emotional sort of punch that I got out of Luca and out of Soul most recently. I do think that, you know, this is a movie that's going to mean different things to different people out there. I couldn't have anything but, you know, immense pride and joy over the fact that it's set in Toronto. Like, I'm not a citizen of Toronto, so I don't know all of the details of the city, but I have a feeling that a lot of the people that love the city and live in the city are going to just freak out over all of the cool little details and touches that are in there. But you see the cityscape, you see the cable cars. Mei Mei goes to Lester B. Pearson's school, and she wears Canadiana iconography on her all the time. She's got a Canadian flag t-shirt and little Canadian flag toque, and you know, all of the citizens that she talks to and the teachers that she talks to have, you know, Canadian-leaning accents. There might be a little French-Canadian stuff in there as well. I loved all of that. I thought that there was some real joy in there. And I don't want to spoil, you know, too much about where I think the movie goes off the rails a bit for me, but I kind of wish that it's adhered a little bit more to the reality of Mei Mei's situation. I feel like this gets crazy fantastical, as a lot of Pixar movies do, but I thought that there was some really cool honesty there. You know, this is a character that wants to do good by her parents. She feels like she's got a responsibility to them, and she's an A student, and she does well on all of her tests. And there's just this great deal of responsibility and respect that this character has, and is also shown by the other characters out there. The kids all feel like she's a little bit too much of a goody two-shoes, but as she starts to act out a little bit, the character becomes super interesting. And then layered on top of that is this crazy fantastical element, which I feel if you're working at Pixar, that's kind of your bread and butter, is to kind of give us the familiar and then go over the top with some crazy animation. Otherwise, why make it an animated movie? I get all that, but I felt like there was some really wonderful honesty and some truth in this this preteen becoming a teen and dealing with that, and dealing with her emotions, and dealing with her desires, and also her constraints and frustrations with how she's gonna sort of follow these dreams, and also not let down her parents and let down her history and her heritage and stuff. So there is a lot to enjoy in this movie for sure, and it absolutely should be seen. It's coming to Disney Plus on March 11th, and I encourage you to make up your own mind with this film. It's just hard for me not to compare this to previous Pixar movies, and some of them are absolute out-and-out masterpieces like Up or Wall-E, and some I just loved immensely because I got something out of it, like Luca. I'm just such an enormous fan of Italy. I adored that movie, and I love jazz, and I love New York City, and so Soul really connected with me as well. And so I love the Canadian stuff, and I like the beauty of this adolescent story, and the sort of predicaments that Mei gets into. But it got a little too crazy and fantastical. And the other thing too is I wasn't crazy about the music, which was kind of insane to me because I love Billie Eilish. I think she's a phenomenal performer, and she's writing music for this movie along with her brother. And Ludwig Göransson also is a composer in this film, and I've been loving his work in, obviously The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett. He did the soundtrack to Tenet, and that's an incredible soundtrack. But I just wasn't blown away by the score or the musical numbers that were in Turning Red. I didn't love this one, and I was a little bit kind of shocked that I didn't. I thought it was good, but on the sort of Pixar scale of things, I feel like good is not quite their sort of pedigree. It's not quite what I expect from them. I usually get great to fantastic or masterpiece. I still think it's worth seeing, and especially if you're a Canadian fan of Pixar and animation, I think you're going to find a lot to love in there. But it gets a surprising 7 out of 10 from me. All right, let's move on. We've got another review that I want to dive into, and that is for Triangle Strategy. This is the brand new title from Square Enix, and I believe it's being published by Nintendo, because Nintendo sent me out the review code for this. It's out for the Nintendo Switch, and I'm using a little bit of trailer footage here to kind of show off the encapsulation of the adventure that you're going to go on, but it doesn't quite play out like this. This is a game that definitely requires a little bit of patience. I streamed some of this on Friday and on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/EPN, and it was fun to play for sure, but there is a tremendous amount of story that is thrust upon you at the beginning, so there's a lot of narrative to kind of weave through and pay attention to. There's lots of different characters that you are introduced to, and there's a lot of minutia within the sort of story construct that comes into play with the decisions that you make with regards to your team members and the direction that your group takes progressing in this very well-crafted story that has the perfect title for it, because you really are caught in this triangle. You're part of a kingdom that has to contend with a couple of other kingdoms in this land called Norzelia, and so you're caught in this power struggle between these three disparate factions, and there's a lot of subterfuge, and there's a lot of backstabbing, and also part of the storytelling as you sort of traverse through the map of Norzelia is you pop onto side story elements, and they also help to flesh out and define everything. And so This is a game that definitely asks you to, you know, follow along with all of these story threads and get to know these different characters and their motivations and what they're up to and what they want out of the world. And then you contend with this epic battle that erupts, and you have to kind of create alliances, and you know, you're constantly engaging your party and trying to rally them, but also go to them to get some advice about what to do next. And you actually have this really cool element within the game where you're voting on things, and you have this scale, and everybody puts a token on the scale to decide, you know, whether you're going to go to battle or whether you're going to protect somebody or whether you're going to give somebody up. And, you know, a lot of that was you know, a kind of an expectation on you as a player to kind of just chill and get lost in the story and watch all of that. And it's really like putting the controller down and just sort of soaking up all of that information. And it was a bit like watching Game of Thrones as if it were crafted on the Super Nintendo, because this uses the 2D HD kind of quality that Octopath Traveler used, and Square Enix is doubling down on. So there's going to be a lot more titles that use this beautiful art style that definitely pulls from classic Square RPGs, which is really cool. But you're using pixelated characters on 3D environments, and there's some really fantastic details in the background and some focus pulling and stuff that happens. But I have to say that one of the problems I had with the storytelling in the game is that we are stuck in these isometric viewpoints. Now, you can swivel the camera around a little bit, especially when you're playing the game. But for the most part, you're stuck on these static camera angles, and you can press the X button and you can pop up a little bit of information between the characters that you're talking to, and you do start to care about all of them. But I felt presentation-wise and production-wise, it would have been much better for there to have been some, you know, some zoom-ins, even if we got pixelated faces or whatever, or some camera pans, you know, just to help animate the story a little bit more, you know, because there's some great voice acting in here. There's some slightly cheesy voice acting in here as well. And there's some beautiful music, and all of the elements are in place to deliver a very mature, very thoughtful, wonderful story experience. But you are sitting and watching these pieces for long periods of time, and I haven't even really gotten into the meat of what the gameplay is, and that's kind of what it's like playing this game. Is like, the gameplay is a turn-based tactical strategy experience, not unlike Advance Wars or Final Fantasy Tactics, which I think it most closely resembles. But you spend so much time in the narrative and in the world building and the relationships between these characters that you almost forget that you're playing a tactical turn-based experience. And when you finally do get into these battles, it's absolutely incredible. And so I love this game. So, you know, flat out, I had an incredible weekend playing this game. I could not stop playing it. I also feel like it's not going to be the game that converts you if you've never played a turn-based, grid-styled strategy tactics game like this before. This won't be the one. There are other games that I would recommend, you know, even going to Fire Emblem or Advance Wars or something like that. There's other titles that are coming out this year. This is a big year for strategy experiences. But if you like that style of gameplay and you also love classic role-playing adventures from Square Enix, you're going to be in heaven, because there is just this beautiful level of detail and lots of great visual stimulation, and you know, no expense was spared with the soundtrack and the voice acting and these visual flourishes and effects and things like that. And it's really fun. I mean, it's like all the best tactical strategy experiences out there. It really tests your mettle and gives you this kind of chess game that comes alive. And so you have to be very smart and strategic with the place on the board that you're moving your characters to. You want to protect your healers. You want to create symbiotic relationships between a couple of different characters and keep them together. If there's characters that you have to protect, you have to constantly throw shield magic around them, maybe a fire shield or some kind of buff that gives them a little bit of extra protection, because everybody's going to be chasing after them on the board. There are traps and things that you can set off. There's all of these wonderful little elements within each map that gives you a strategy. Sometimes you have to open a locked door, sometimes you have to get to the end of a space, and you know, there might still be other enemies on the board, but you just are racing from one end of the board to the other. It is just a joy to play that. I really, really love that. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed soaking up the story bits for sure, but it is overwhelming. And I found that even on the stream. Like, we spent, I think, 3 hours or so playing the video game, and most of that I had my controller on the desk, and I was just watching the screen. And if that doesn't sound fun to you, I think be aware that that's part of the experience here. Now, once you do kind of lean into it and give yourself over to the experience like I did over the weekend, you can't put it down. I mean, it's just so tuned and so well crafted, and it's so addictive. I really loved getting to know these characters, and you can have I think up to 20 different characters in your party, and all of them have different abilities. There's, you know, obviously there's characters that have ranged weapons and lots of melee type weapons, and there's magic attacks, and you're able to level them up and, you know, kind of manage each character independently. You can go into encampments and you know, a big chunk of the game, not only are you in these sort of story-driven narrative things where you kind of sit back and watch all of that, but you also have to go and explore and chat with everybody that you might meet in a town or in your encampment or whatever. You're constantly talking to the characters. There's no filler characters in there. Even when we're on these side story pieces where you're not really playing anything, you're just watching stuff, the characters are really well thought out, and the intrigue is real. Like, you really are caught up in the maturity of it and the level of detail that the developers went to make this thing, you know, rise above its kind of antiquated visuals. You know, it's like the best of the Square Enix role-playing experiences as well, right? Like, they were so broad and filled with ambition and thoughtfulness that when you would play them, even if the characters are a little itty-bitty, you would be lost in your imagination. And that happens with this game as well. And then, I mean, the core play style, the sort of chessboard, you know, on the grid based tactical strategy play style is just so much fun. You don't have the same effects with enemies dying on the board like you would in something like Fire Emblem, where they're gone forever. You know, the story defines when characters leave the rest of the missions, you know, and there are some deaths and there are some crazy backstabs and you know, some shocks in the game. But I just freaking love it, and I cannot believe, like, the quality of releases over this last month. You know, Dying Light 2 and Sifu and Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West and Gran Turismo, and there's some huge, massive 3D beautiful experiences out there, and I had no problem getting lost in this 2D HD wonderful creation from Square Enix. I was completely hooked by it. And I think if you dig this kind of stuff, if you love classic JRPGs from Square Enix, if you are also a fan of strategy games, you've got a Nintendo Switch because it's exclusive to the Switch, at least right now, I think it's definitely worth checking out. I don't think it's for everybody, and I do think that the presentation around the story could have been beefed up. That's my only complaint with it. Everything else could have been the same, but if they had just done a little bit more to you know, bring us into these characters and animate them a little bit, even if they were all blocky and pixelated, I think that would have been a great improvement for the experience. But if you can look past that, and I know many of you can, you're going to love this game. It's really, really wonderful. The story, the title is so generic, but it fits so well, you know? I've never been a fan of this being the game's title. I think that this is kind of a forgettable title, but the game is anything but. It's really, really great. I'm going to give Triangle Strategy for Nintendo Switch a 9 out of 10. All right, I had a chance to review the MateView GT not too long ago from Huawei. They sent me that monitor out to take a look at it, but then it also became part of my regular day-to-day production. It's such a great monitor, but they also shot me out another monitor. It's just simply called the MateView, and this one's a little bit different. It's definitely engineered more for you know, office work and you know, document work. It's got a bit of a taller aspect ratio, so it's definitely something more suited for looking at documents or looking at websites and being able to see everything. It's an HD monitor, and it actually you know, can run video games and video content beautifully, but the resolution's a little bit different here. You can see that you can run games like Doom Eternal at this resolution, 3840 by 2560 resolution. I've got this running on an Alienware R12 computer, and it was really cool. It almost kind of reminded me of being able to play a game in sort of IMAX aspect ratio, where you've got a bit of a taller screen, you can see a little bit more. It's still wide, but it's a little bit taller. And, you know, the specs on the MateView are pretty damn solid. We're talking about a 28.2-inch display with a 3:2 aspect ratio. It's got HDR 400 capabilities, 500 nits brightness. It has a 1200 to 1 contrast ratio at a 60 hertz refresh rate. And it's got 1.07 billion colors and a DCI P3 color accuracy. So it's not too dissimilar from some of the specs that I had to play with and have been playing with the MateView GT. But the MateView GT obviously is more of a widescreen. So it's interesting, they have kind of a stout screen with this 3:2 aspect on the MateView monitor. But you can see the MateView GT is wonderful for my kind of work where I'm editing and I want to see the whole timeline on something that I might be working on. It also has slightly different specs. This one has a 34-inch diagonal display at 1500R in terms of the curvature. The aspect ratio is 21:9. It's a 3440 by 1440 display. I love gaming and I love working on the MateView GT, but I have to say I was super impressed looking at the images and the quality and also the sleek design of just the traditional MateView as well. It's just like almost bezel-less. It's really like this window that you know, will show up on your desk or in your office space. Here's a little bit of video footage that I found online showing off 4K 60 frames per second with HDR. And it looked incredible. Popped off the screen. It looked almost three-dimensional. It was really, really nice. There's also a built-in speaker in this monitor as well, which actually sounded all right. You know, I threw on the PlayStation 5 and played some Cyberpunk on there, and it looked pretty damn cool. And there's some flexibility with the way that the monitor can be outfitted as well. You can move the monitor up and down on the stand. It all comes pre-set up, so there's nothing you have to do to put it together. But you can sort of swivel the monitor depending on where you have it height-wise on your desk. And it just looks so sleek, you know. I was super impressed by the build quality and the look of it. It's very, very stylish. There are also a bunch of ports built into it. So you've got HDMI in, mini display port in, and then you've got a couple of USB ports on the side. So the whole idea with this monitor is for you to basically use this as your hub. So when you hook up a laptop or something to it, you can have it be powered just by the one power outlet that's coming out of the monitor. I've got a MacBook Pro, and I plugged in using a USB-C to USB-C, and poop, the monitor just popped up there, and I was getting power to my laptop at the same time, which was pretty damn great. I gotta say that Huawei, I've never tested out their stuff before. I've never checked out any of their goods before, but they were. It was pretty cool that they reached out and said, we want to show you the MateView and the MateView GT. I prefer the GT, but that's for me. You may have a situation in your life where you are looking for, you know, a more traditional kind of spec'd out monitor out there. This one's a little bit taller. One of the cool things actually about this that I did notice, like, it's great for looking at websites. Here's our YouTube channel right there, and video looks great on it. Obviously, this is, you know, shot off the screen, so it's not the same thing that I'm looking at, but it's that same aspect ratio as Game Boy Advance. So it's like it stretches right to the edges of everything, and so GBA stuff just looks incredible on this thing. Yeah, I was quite impressed by the MateView. I think Huawei's, and I believe that these are their two first sort of, you know, gaming-centric monitors that they're sort of diving into the market. I know the GT is for sure, but they're off to a pretty good start. I'm a big fan of both the MateView and the MateView GT. I would give the MateView an 8 out of 10. All right, I've got a few more things that I want to tell you guys about. I got a press release about Ender Lillies today. They have hit over 600,000 copies sold for this very well-received video game. It's a Metroidvania type of experience. I played some of this on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/EPN, not too long ago, and had a good time. I know that Jose Sanchez, Don Fubar, loves playing this game. I'm pretty sure he's beat the crap out of this game. But along with the announcement that it's a huge success out there, they also said that there's going to be a physical edition. The developers have partnered with Limited Run, and so Ender Lillies' Quietest of the Nights Collector's Edition is coming for the Switch, but I also believe it's also coming for the PlayStation 4/PS5, maybe some other platforms out there, but it comes with a soundtrack and some art material. And it looks pretty damn good. It's not inexpensive, but I know that there are a lot of players out there that prefer to have everything physically, and if you happen to be a big fan of Ender Lillies, as I'm recording this today, I think you're going to be able to pre-order that tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, go to the Limited Run website to check that out. And I also got some news about Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga, which is coming up fast. I know we've been waiting forever for this game, and it sure does look incredible. It's a game loaded with details and all of the different eras of the Star Wars movies. Of course, we got the prequels, and we got the classic trilogy, and we have the most recent trilogy. They're all included. The cast of characters in the game is enormous. We're going to be flying from planet to planet and going from each of the different films to going into different ships and flying around kind of open world style and going out into space battles and basically seeing and exploring through all of the different facets of these Star Wars lore from the major movies over the last, I don't know, 45 years, 50 We've been getting Star Wars for so long, it's crazy. But obviously one of the things that they wanted to do is tap into the new Star Wars stuff that's out there. And so even though I don't think that they're going to be doing too much new, full levels and game content, they're at least giving people the opportunity to pick up some of the characters that they might love from more recent shows, like the Dark Trooper character pack, which was in Rogue One, and I think they also showed that in The Mandalorian. We've got Ahsoka Tano in there that you can pick up. They've got Hunter from the Bad Batch is one of the characters that you can pick up as DLC. Of course, The Mandalorian is in there, and they actually have a screenshot of Mando with Grogu, which is pretty damn cute. Obviously these are characters that will just fit into whatever lore building is going on within the game, so it might feel a little incongruous, but it'll still be cool to play as these characters. Also, honoring and celebrating Rogue One and Solo, the sort of somewhat forgotten Star Wars movies. Rogue One's incredible, though. It's still one of my favorite Star Wars experiences. So you'll be able to get those. But there were two added to the character pack information that I got today. Lando and Classic Obi-Wan, which I felt they were very out of place. Like, why wouldn't those be already in the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga collection? I mean, it just would be weird if you're not going to be able to play as classic Obi-Wan and Lando already. You should already get those games. As you can tell, though, I am incredibly excited to play Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. It's coming out in, I think, about a month, a little bit more than a month, and I'll definitely be streaming it, and I'll be reviewing it right here, so please stay tuned, and may the Force be with you. All right, you guys, that's going to do it for the rundown today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back very soon with a fresh episode for you, and in the meantime, please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you dig it. That's youtube.com/EPNTV. And follow us along on our Twitch channel where we do the rundowns live, but we also stream games all the time. That's twitch.tv/EPN. Thank you very much to all of our subscribers and followers. You guys are incredible. We'll see you soon. And until then, play forever.